That's right, Thomas. They're running away from the spirit of fire. Because the eternal spirit of fire is what? Accelerating the gift of electrons. They're running away from the first electron donor. That's right. Running away. And what does that generate? Separation anxiety. Separated from the first spiral, which is the first spirit, the first electron donor. That's why when you think of the underworld, the shadow body realm, shadow body beings, the shadow body network, deadlight networks, deadlight machine coded networks, you can see how that works with what is known as the UL. You ever seen the UL little tag on electrical plugs, the electrical extension cords, UL? That's called the underworld, which is otherwise known as underwriter laboratory. See, so when in the fire protection business that I was associated with, you realize that all the money that they spend in building these machines, pumpers, right, engines, trucks, which are ladders, the way that they define the terminology that is defined for what is built holographically and assembled, like a truck, when you think of firefighting, an engine is an engine, which in this case would be a pumper because it's got a pump on board with a tank of water, right? A truck, a fire truck, a truck is not the same as an engine, okay? Because it has a different job description, which is the application of consciousness, which is the application of running machine codes, okay? Their job is primarily what? Salvage. And what are they salvaging? Interest, cell interest. And this is how it works for them when you're inverted, right? Which is an inverted triangle, which means if you were at the top controlling all the mass below, right? So all the mass is below, which represents the mass, which represents the density, in order to keep compressing all those cells, to implode all those cells. Okay, compression, PSI, compression. Keep compressing those cells till they implode from the inside out, which is the compression of what? Cells. Living, breathing cells. Right? And so what you end up happening with these folks is that they're protecting their interests as battery slaves, which would include a tree, rocks, water molecules, right? Everything that is alive and living that is spirit and sentient. Okay, it's in their interest to protect it only as it relates to what? Derivatives and futures, future memories. The gambling casino. So that's why they set up all their nurseries, all their Georgia Pacific, right? Weyerhaeuser. Okay, they don't allow trees to become fully mature like an old growth forest, like up in Canada. Right? Because it's always the way that their math works. Okay, is to harvest as much as they can over a given period of time, space, vectors. Right? Till it implodes. So there is a mathematical measurement of every tree and every seed that gets planted over time, space. The growth pattern of that consciousness, which is a sentient tree, for example. All the trees on the planet is a mathematical firing order. Every seed that is planted is a mathematical firing order that is represented by a spiral. So you have different spirals that are running in different directions. The first spiral in the proper direction, the top spin. And the other spiral is seeking to implode itself. The consciousness is seeking to implode itself, to return to source as fast as it can. What? To relieve itself of all of its stress, which is its pressure. It's natural for that to happen, even though it's not natural to experience yourself wanting to do that to yourself. Now you're into buying time. Buying time. Right? Electrons. The first electron donor. And so this was sort of how agreements are arrived at, like the Emerald Roundtable Agreement, and why it was defined as salvage and redemption and recovery, which requires what? Time-space vectors. The amount of time that it takes to recode and run the original codes. Now we remember who we are, right? The first one, the collective conscious field of all there is, the grand nature, the natural spiral, experiencing ourselves being one, experiencing our inner selves, experiencing our inner self, our true solar rishi self, experiencing ourselves being one with all the other selves. I shared this last night with Christopher Comstock. Don't you think it would be in my best cellular interest to look out for your interest? Oh, I'm looking out, like looking glass, right? And an example of that, Thomas, would be when I was a young boy, and see, I'm ordered to go to school. You know what a truant officer is, right? If you're not following the program to have that information programmed into your read-active memory, they're going to send an officer out to you, just much like Minority Report. A failure to obey, not following the orders, which is the instruction set. Oh, now we're into instruction sets and instruction guides, following the machine order. So when I was not feeling very well, I did not want to go to school. And it didn't have anything to do whatsoever with violating their rules and wanting to get out of being to school. Okay? It had everything to do with exposure. I didn't want to expose, right, others to the codes that I'm running in my software, because I'm experiencing the codes, which represent inflammation, if you will, and not feeling well. So if I'm not feeling well, I don't want others not to feel what I'm feeling, not well. So therefore, it's not in your best interest, which is my cellular interest, for you not to experience the codes that I'm running, that you're running in yours, when you experience the codes that I'm experiencing, that I'm running in mine, which is why I'm not feeling well. So that has everything to do with what? Transmission. Code transmission, which are frequency transmissions. Biofield hackers of consciousness-coded transmissions. So as I mentioned to him last night, when it's in my single, the first point of origin, the first spirit, the first breath, to experience an eternal state of peace, now others are experiencing the peace that I'm in, so they're experiencing a peaceful self. Cellular software, a state of consciousness that is in a state of eternal peace with the first spiral, with the first spirit. So I'm in a state of eternal peace with the eternal creator spirit. Doesn't that sound like a good idea?